Let me share the screen. Srimad. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, Chapter 5, verse 30. Vaikarikan manojajne. Vaikarikan manojajne. Deva Vaikarika Dasha. Deva Vaikarika Dasha. Digvatharka Prachetosvi. Digvatharka Prachetosvi. Vagnindropendramitraka. Vagnindropendramitraka. Vaikarikan manojajne. Vaikarikan manojajne. Deva Vaikarika Dasha. Deva Vaikarika Dasha. Digvatharka Prachetosvi. Digvatharka Prachetosvi. Vagnindropendramitraka. Vagnindropendramitraka. Vaikarikan manojajne. Deva Vaikarika Dasha. Digvatharka Prachetosvi. Vagnindropendramitraka. Vaikarikan manojajne. Deva Vaikarika Dasha. Digvatharka Prachetosvi. Vagnindropendramitraka. Translation and purport by Sri Venkateswara Charnaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Synonyms: Vaikarikat, from the mode of goodness. Mana, the mind. Jajne, generated. Deva, demigods. Vaikarika, in the mode of goodness. Dasha, 10. Dik, the controller of directions. Vatha, the controller of air. Arka, the sun. Pracheta, Varuna. Asvi, the Ashwini Kumaras. Vahni, the fire god. Indra, the king of heaven. Upendra, the deity in heaven. Mitra, one of the 12 Adityas. Kha, Prajapati, Brahma. Translation: from the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest. As also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions. The controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the Ashwini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all come into existence. Purport: Vaikarika is the neutral stage of creation, and Tejas is the initiative of creation, while Tamas is the full display of material creation under the spell of the darkness of ignorance. Manufacture of the necessities of life in factories and workshops, excessively prominent in the age of Kali, or in the age of the machine, is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. Such manufacturing enterprises by human society are in the mode of darkness because factually there is no necessity for the commodities manufactured. Human society primarily requires food for subsistence, shelter for sleeping, defense for protection, and commodities for satisfaction of the senses. The senses are the practical signs of life, as will be explained in the next words. human civilization is meant for purifying the senses. And objects of sense satisfaction should be supplied as much as absolutely required, but not for aggravating artificial sensory needs. Food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification are all needs in material existence. Otherwise, in its pure, uncontaminated state of original life, the living entity has no such needs. The needs are therefore artificial, and in the pure state of life, there are no such needs. As such, increasing the artificial needs, as is the standard of material civilization, or advancing the economic development of human society, is a sort of engagement in darkness without knowledge. By such engagement, human energy is spoiled, because human energy is primarily meant for purifying the senses in order to engage them in satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the supreme possessor of spiritual senses, is the master of the senses, Krishikesha. Krishika means the senses, and Isha means the master. The Lord is not the servant of the senses, or in other words, he is not directed by the dictation of the senses. But the conditioned souls or the individual living entities are servants of the senses. They are conducted by the direction of or dictation of the senses. And therefore, material civilization is a kind of engagement in sense gratification only. The standard of human civilization should be to cure the disease of sense gratification, and one can do this simply by becoming an agent for satisfying the spiritual senses of the Lord. The senses are never to be stopped in their engagements, but one should purify them by engaging them in the pure service of sense gratification of the master of the senses. This is the instruction of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted, first of all, to satisfy his own senses by his decision not to fight with his kinsmen and friends. But Lord Sri Krishna taught him the Bhagavad Gita just to purify Arjuna's decision for sense gratification. Therefore, Arjuna agreed to satisfy the senses of the Lord, and thus he fought the battle of Kurukshetra as the Lord desired. The Vedas instruct us to get out of the existence of darkness and go forward on the path of light. Tamasima jyotirgama. The path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Misguided men or less intelligent men follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord by following the path shown by Arjuna and other devotees of the Lord. On the contrary, they artificially try to stop the activities of the senses yoga system, or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord, yajna system, jnana system, sorry. The devotees, however, are above the yogis and the jnanis because pure devotees do not deny the senses of the Lord. They want to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Only because of the darkness of ignorance do the yogis and jnanis deny the sense of the Lord and thus artificially try to control the activities of the diseased senses. In the diseased condition of the senses, there is too much engagement of the senses in increasing material needs. When one comes to see the disadvantage of aggravating the sense activities, one is called a jnani. And when one tries to stop the activities of the senses with the practice of yogic principles, he is called a yogi. But when one is fully aware of the transcendental senses of the Lord and tries to satisfy his senses, Lord's senses, one is called a devotee of the Lord. So the devotee of the Lord don't try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor do they artificially stop the actions of the senses, but they do voluntarily engage the purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, as was done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karodi Vachalam Pangun Langa Tegirim Yatripathamamande Sri Gurum Denatarinam Paramananda Madham Sri Chaitanya Meshwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. So, here about how the mind has come. From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and become manifest. Also, the 10 demigods who are controlling the bodily movements. So they are the control of directions and controller of air, sun god, father of Daksha Prajapati, Ashwini Kumaras, fire god, and king of heaven, worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of the Aditya, Brahmaji, Prajapati. So these are all. They are all created. So in this Srishti, it is very clearly shown. Yattat sattva gunam swacham shantam bhagavata padam. Yat ahur vasudevakyam chittam tan mahad atmakam. Bahunam janmanamante, we have seen in Bhagavad Gita. So this state, Vasudevakyam or Chittam, always filled up with Vasudeva consciousness, Shuddha Sattva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, the starting point of Srimad Bhagavatam. So our present position of consciousness is polluted by the three modes of material nature, Satogun, Rajogun, Tamagun. So here Sattvagun, the mode of goodness is explained. The Brahminical qualification, Satyam, Samo, Dhama, Saucham, Arjavam, Jnanam, Vijnanam, Astikyam, Brahma, Karma, Swabhavacham. In Bhagavad Gita, definition of Brahmana is given. So still it has to be purified. That is called Swacham. Swacham means completely crystal clear. Just like we got experience, if you go to the mid of ocean, you can see within the water very deep, 20 feet, 30 feet, very clear. Those who have gone through a sea, they have experience, very clear. So the chitta, consciousness must be clear. Vasudevakyam, when one can clearly see Vasudeva or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is possible. Simply, we have to purify the chitta. That is a process given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How to cleanse the chitta means consciousness. Cheto darpana marjanam. Marjanam means cleansing, polishing. Cheto darpana marjanam. As soon as the chitta or consciousness you perfectly cleanse, then Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Damava. Bhava Mahadavagni, the material existence, is compared with the blazing forest fire. So this is the right comparison. Because in the forest, nobody goes to set fire, but it takes place. You cannot stop it. And when the forest fire is there, you cannot stop the fire also by your so many counteracting method, namely getting the fire brigade, buckets of water. That is also not possible. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also has compared this material life as a blazing forest fire. Samsara dava nalalita loka. So, this material world is blazing fire. Blazing fire means the forest fire. The example is very typical because nobody goes to set the fire in the forest. Neither it is possible to extinguish the fire in the forest by your so many counteracting methods. This is very appropriate example. So similarly, in the material existence, nobody wants any trouble. Automatically, the trouble comes. Everyone has got experience. Everyone is trying for happiness. Nobody wants for distress, but distress comes here. You cannot stop it. Therefore, those who are advanced in knowledge, they take it for granted that I don't want distress, so the distress cannot be checked. It comes upon me. Then why shall I try for happiness? It will also come. This is very right conclusion actually. If without my endeavor, distress is coming upon me, so there are two things, dvandva, duality, distress and happiness, two counterparts of the same coin. So if distress can come upon me without any endeavor, so the happiness also will come without any endeavor because this is just another counterpart. So why shall I waste my time for this material distress and happiness? That is the injunction of Shastra. In first canto, 5th chapter, 18th verse, we have seen. Tasyaiva heto prete tako vido nalabhyate yad brahma thamu paryatha tallabhyate dukkavadanyata sukham kalena sarvatra gabira ramasha. So, Tallabhyate dukkhavadanyata sukham. Just like the distress comes upon me without end over. Similarly, according to my destiny, destiny means to some extent we suffer and to some extent we enjoy. Huh? There is no enjoyment actually, but we take it for enjoyment. The struggle for existence, the struggle for mitigating suffering, we take it as happiness. Actually, there is no happiness in this material world. Dukkha lema shashvatam. Krishna said, it is made up of dukkha. How can you find sukha? Huh? Anyway, even there is happiness and distress, two relative terms. So one can come without any endeavor. The other also will come without any endeavor. That's a fact. Huh? So our mental concoction should not be unnecessarily wasted trying to become happy by mental concoction. There cannot be any unalloyed happiness in this material world. This is the nature of the material world. So the conclusion should be, therefore, we are destined to suffer a certain extent of so-called happiness and certain extent of so-called distress. You cannot escape those. You cannot control those. The distress is also so-called only. Happiness is also so-called only. That's again this explained in Bhagavad Gita. Agama payino nitya tam stitikshasva bharata. The happiness and distress which comes and goes, they are anitya. They will not stay. So like that, we have to understand. So the mind is created from the mode of goodness. The false ego is transformed into mind by interaction with the mode of goodness. All the demigods who control the phenomenal world and the body, they are also products of the same principle, that is interaction of false ego and the mode of goodness. So that is the purport of this verse. False ego interacting with the different modes of material nature is the source of all material in the phenomenal world. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments or realization you can do share with me? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Thank you very much for the association. So let's resume our class tomorrow morning, 8:30. Till then, Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. पतित पावन श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. वैष्णव प्रणाम. वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री गुरु महाराज की जय. निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि 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 बोल.